but you're with Chastity Snowden and Dr. Donna Van Natten, or as I like to call her, the body language doctor. And I've had both of these ladies on podcast and our videos several times. And I was sitting with, I love it when the page refreshes. I was sitting with Dr. Donna Van Natten, who from this point forward, I will probably just call Donna or Doctor. She elbows me, then I'll
it'll be all right.
Well, because what I got this idea of this conversation is she's got a new book coming out that she'll talk about in a second. And I've talked many times with Chastity. And one of the things that I found that their circles loop and kind of intersect is the body image.
That's that Venn diagram thing.
Venn diagram.
Venn diagramming. Yes. That's right.
But is the body image.
Absolutely.
And tell everybody while I'm doing this what the name of your new book is coming out.
Coming out in June. And it's in pre-order form now on Barnes & Noble and on Amazon. Body Language for Women. It is about confidence, knowing relationships and significant other, and its name is straightforward: Body Language for Women. Can't beat that.
No confusing
anything else.
What it's about.
I think it's about body language and body image and body everything for women.
Well,
but you should read it too.
Well, yes. I need all the help I can get.
You have women in your life.
Yes, I do.
Right? Yeah.
Well, and also, just let's go ahead and throw this out there. And you may have said it while I was ignoring you doing my Facebook stuff, but you have 2 other books.
I do. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I had Image Scrimmage that came out 3 years ago. It's been already, Clint.
Wow.
3 years. And then in January, this last January, timing, imagine this, body language, the body language of politics.
I love that one. It's like it was an accident.
It sounds like the publisher said, what's happening in 2020?
What could be going on? And just before I get to Chastity's social media, what's your Instagram page? Do you remember?
Donna Van Natten.
There, it's very difficult.
My name. It's pretty tough.
But I loved going to her Instagram during the debates. If you watch any of the political debates and watch,
it comes alive.
And here's the bad thing. Once you've talked to somebody like her about body language, it's like talking to you about food. Mm-hmm. It's once you've done it, I start becoming very conscious of it, right? So I've always been kind of in the health world, but macros are something I never really thought a lot about until I started talking to you. So now I look at something and I go, protein 4, 4, and 9. I know what all the calories are, Once you talk to her about this enough, you'll start watching stuff.
Do you notice the lapel pin?
Absolutely.
What do you think of those tie colors?
Or when they talk to each other and they lean in, I'm like, oh, she wants to punch him.
Here comes space.
Absolutely. It's just funny because when you watch people talk after you talk with her enough, you kind of go,
finger right there.
See this? You see what I'm doing right now?
Exactly.
I'm so excited now to actually watch something political.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm going to investigate and now I'm going to learn from you and then watch political stuff because I just don't. It's
really not about the politics part. It's about how they behave, from
how they move.
Background looks like, how they move. What are they wearing? What level do they get on with people in the background? Looking at everything else that gives us the whole language of what's going on, of how they communicate. Because they all do this, right? Some loud, some teeth, some screaming, some spitting, but
that's so exciting.
And I love to watch not only the debates, but I think some of the small things now give me excitement about politics. For instance, when they're doing the impromptu press conference, and once they start walking away and they're not in their scripted behind the podium and they get the question that really pisses them off and they turn around and you can tell they're angry, I want to text her and go, are you watching that?
Clenching lips. Look at that. Diverting eyes. Yeah.
I don't like it.
Touching their ear. What does all that mean?
Okay. So let me jump this whole thing off correctly. For those who may be watching this, because these videos live forever out there, they're not just, now. If you're watching this and you don't know who Chastity is the owner of the Fearlessly Authentic movement. And you jump in if I get this wrong. She is a nutritional coach, and I've added something to your title.
Oh,
you're a nutritional and happess coach.
Oh.
Yes.
Very nice. Yeah. We need that.
It's not getting on a business card, but she was also a competitor in the 2018 World CrossFit Games. She was ranked 15th in the United States and 20th in the world. And she is a podcast video content guru, as I like to call you.
Ooh.
And Dr. Donna Van Natten, as we've been talking, is the body language doctor. She's the author of the 2 books, the aforementioned Image Scrimmage, Body Language of Politics. And of course, she just mentioned her new book coming out. She lectures around the country and she's on podcasts and TV.
Oh, you are in great company, Clint.
Right? I'm going to just have to introduce
Here, hold on.
I'm leaving.
Let me get yours. Here it is.
I'm leaving.
Clint is a good guy.
Yes, that's it. Though. That's it. Hey,
Clint values women.
Yes, I do. I've got
Yes.
a very strong. Hey, watch this. I have no issues with body image or nothing. So let's talk. So, how's this?
It'll be okay. Yeah. Wait, here. It'll be okay.
Typical strong guy. I need the affirmations of a strong-willed woman to let me know. And by the way, did you notice she patted me?
I know. I rubbed.
She rubbed.
I rubbed you.
I don't know what that means.
Patting is that timer. Rubbing is soothing. That's right.
I feel like a leg ought to be kicking or something. Like
I feel like I'm just going to read this book 100 times. I'm so excited.
You're going to love the
with
book.
lots of pictures in it too. I always fight for more photos, and so I have the contract has 50, and I end up with like 80, and I'm like, pretty close, right?
Well, let's do this. Let's get into a little bit of the meat of this because I think the flow is there now. I think we've got through with the introductions. I would love for you to tell folks, Chast, a little bit about. Let's go to the part where you're at the World CrossFit Games, the experience you had in the dressing room, and you can kind of compare that to your history with some eating disorders, and then we will kind of just go from there.
Okay. So I trained for 5 years trying to get to the CrossFit Games from the moment of walking into a CrossFit gym and not knowing what CrossFit was. And if you don't know what CrossFit is, it's lifting weights for time with some gymnastics thrown in. And we compete in age divisions. So I was 35, I ended up 38, but I was in the 35 to 40 year division in the last year that I competed in 2018. Ended up being top 20 in the world, and the top 20 ended up going to the CrossFit Games. So for 5 years, my journey was I want to make it to the CrossFit Games. Every day, all I thought about was that. Lifting more, becoming stronger, going to a gym that didn't have mirrors, which was one of the things that I loved because I was previously eating disordered and struggled with eating disorders the entire time I was trying to fight to get to the CrossFit Games. So I arrived. Yay, I'm there. And I go into the dressing room to get an entire wardrobe of clothes for the weekend, which is something everybody dreams of. And you have your numbers on your sports bras and your shorts and your shirts and your name. And it's like this exciting thing. And I put the clothes on and I just burst into tears because I hated the way I looked in the mirror. The clothes didn't fit right. I was super scared about the fact that I was going to have to wear these clothes on camera, bending over, doing workouts. And I just was at the top of the performance level in the world, but I hated the way I looked. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, I can't do anything about this. I'm going to get some shorts that fit better. I'm going to keep these shorts that don't fit. I'm going to enjoy this weekend, do the best I possibly can. And then after that, I'm going to eventually look good in these shorts. And that's going to be my new goal after I enjoy this weekend. Long story short, I'm still working to get to look good in those shorts because I had to work to like recover from all of the training that I did and recover my body. And then I had to also recover my mind and my health from eating disorders that I had participated in quite fully over the course of like 20 years. So I'm in a much better place mentally and physically now, but I'm still working toward that goal of looking like I want to inside the game shorts that I got. So it's a very, very fun journey. And I'm enjoying the journey now. And before I wasn't enjoying it as much.
And correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember correctly, when I asked you, did you have eating disorder? Was it anorexia or bulimia? Your answer was
yes.
Yeah, that's a great. So you struggled with both. And what age did you start that? Well, how old were you?
I remember the first time I started thinking about food was probably when I was 10 or 11. When I started controlling food was probably 14, 15, like completely controlling, writing everything down. Bulimia started probably about 16.
Wow. Do you, and I don't know how it works. Do you still struggle with those thoughts, or is that something
Yes.
that you, okay. Do you really? Okay.
It's kind of like an alcoholic always thinking about alcohol, or an addict always thinking about what it feels like to get high. So I think about like like I'm uncomfortable in my skin. Some days I wake up and I look in the mirror and I'm like, wow, you're sexy, looking good. Like you should put something cute on. And then the next,
literally, wear those shorts.
Right. And the next day, the exact same outfit, I'm like, you're a cow. You're disgusting. Like you should put on a sweatshirt and never go outside. Ever.
See, some days I feel like doing a podcast with a chair in front of me. And then some days I feel like I'm all capable in doing it. I understand.
Yeah, zipper down. Yeah,
zipper. Look at this. Bam. Yeah. Right there you go. Well, okay. So let's take that conversation. And I want to ask you, Donna, how you got into the body language doctor world. And if you can take that and move into this new book you got coming out, especially let's stick with that body image.
Yeah,
like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
What got you into that?
Well, I mean, I think gender dynamics are fascinating. Even, 30 years ago when I was a school teacher, for junior high, what's called middle school now, and realizing such huge differences and how much more complex, particularly females were with, everything going on. And you ask a boy, how you doing? Fine is fine. There's no other deep agenda. You ask a girl how it's going, it's like, well, you're like, oh, lots more going on there. And we've talked about our kids. We both have both gender kids and how different they are. And so it just really worked itself. And then, going out to the bigger world of teaching and so forth, leaving, K-12, classroom kind of thing. And we're the same as adults. And so the gender dynamics are fascinating, as you know, and how we communicate with our bodies and how we feel, like Chaz is saying, on the inside we look the same, but on the inside we feel so different. So how do we portray that? From the covering of the eyes to what we put on our body, of clothing is huge.
Yeah.
Kind of thing of and how we look at other women who can wear, oh my gosh, she's wearing that. And is that good or is that bad? And it's the same person, but what we do with our bodies communicates, and how people feel, by what you're wearing and how others judge you. We are a judging, Homo sapien, which we need to be to stay alive. But it's a tough situation to navigate sometimes.
Yeah. And as a dad of a daughter who's about to be 16, if you're listening to this and you go, oh, I'm not really sure about the whole wearing thing.
What is that?
As soon as your daughter puts on something, my daughter, I remember, and Chat, you've met my daughter, so I think both of you may have, but she was getting ready for this really high-end dance last year. She wore this beautiful dress, but when I saw her in it, she looked like a woman, and I was like, no,
back upstairs,
absolutely not. This is just, everybody now dies. Everyone, I'm like, but all I had to do was like, you look beautiful.
That's right.
Because she carried herself with pride, and she wasn't too revealing, but it hit me that
it communicated.
And to a dad, it communicates, dude, go to the gym, get in shape, because you need to intimidate as many people as humanly possible. And that's where Chas is helping me get back into out of the dad bod into the cool dad bod.
Gotcha.
So I can get back to my former self, or better version of my current self. All right. So your background, you got interested in it. The new book's coming out. You said, if I'm not mistaken, the first chapter
is all about body image, right? As children.
What did you? Oh, as children,
right? How girls are girls. The whole segment on do girls build relationships with other little girls, or if not, do they seek out males? And how different that gender dynamic is when there's a group and it's boy with that one girl, and how it changes everything for the one girl, but also how others view and talk about or communicate with that girl with a big boy group.
Right.
Very different.
And as they grow up, so when you hear Chas' story, and you've done the research for your book about the whole body image thing and your perspective of being a female, can you relate to that kind of brain?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it just rolls around and rolls around. She made a perfect point, but the hard thing is you can completely give up alcohol, give up drugs, but you can't give up food and the purpose of it and what you're scripted with, our triggers, and how we learn these scripts in our childhood of what was said to us or what was affirmed to us. Was she told, were you pretty, or was she told, were you smart? Oh, yeah. So those things matter. And then how you communicate that of, do we look at other women and say she's really pretty or she's really smart? So we in a good way and a bad way, pay it forward.
It's funny you say that. Now I think of a buddy of mine, Katie was probably 9 or 10, and I would describe her on athletic fields as a beast.
Right.
I would go, man, she is a beast. And everybody was high, and she loved it. And I remember him saying to me, hey, dude, you might want to watch that. And I go, why? I don't understand. But now that I stopped because I didn't understand. But I guess that's.
Well, I'm really tall, that, and I'm.
Or I'm really short. One of the two.
Okay. And I remember somebody saying, "You're so big," and I'm like, I'm so big, and that really it's damaging in the sense of what do you mean by that versus you're so tall. Now people are bigger nowadays, just as growing as humans, kind of thing. But you throw, and I grew a foot in 2 years. Between 7th, I grew fast, and the whole leg sore, painful growth of that growth spurt. And I was like, when will I stop? Kind of thing, because women aren't supposed to be big. There's something about men.
Did you get that when you were in CrossFit? Did anybody, or were you surrounded by so many people that were active? Did you ever get the girl with muscles thing?
It's funny. Yeah. The reason I started CrossFit is I had a guy tell me that I looked like a CrossFitter, and I thought he was putting me down.
Right. What does
that mean? I
didn't
know what that was. I just assumed. And then I surrounded myself with people and women that were stronger because I always wanted to be small. And I easily put on muscle just genetically. And so CrossFit was helpful for me because I could surround myself with women that were naturally just big, and being stronger was looked at as a good thing versus if I looked at a magazine or I went to a regular gym, then being tiny with big boobs was looked at as good. And I was like, well, I'm not tiny and I don't have big boobs. That's not who I am. So,
she said, I want to be small. What is it about that? Where does that come from, that we should be small and they should be big? In true biology, are we small and helpless, and you go out as a, caveman and slay things and are big and protect us, and how that then manifests itself over time, when we all get bigger and then you put on the fat as an adult, and women, the studies say that, we look at it as, oh no, oh my gosh. And guys are like, heck yeah, look at me, The
dad bod. We take pride. We go the dad bod.
All the way up. Even men today, they're like, I wear a 36. And then, the belt is hanging below. And you're like, yeah. But our number system on clothing is brutal, XL, bigger, 14, 16, 20s. And, it's not.
And as a guy, I'll give a tip, like the two women aren't on the podcast right now. If anyone asks you to buy clothes and you don't know the exact size, don't.
Probably a good tip.
Well, I'll tell you why too, because stores are tricky. So you can be in a 4 or a 9 or a 1 or a 30. I don't have a clue, but you can look in their closet and go, oh, it's a 4. And you can go to a different store and buy a 4 and it's not a 4.
Right.
And you, sir, are in trouble.
Yep.
This is why I don't shop.
Gift card. Just get a gift card.
Well, and the thing about just the simple of that is we knew that the teen sizes were odd numbered. Remember they had a store. Remember that?
Yeah.
579.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so we knew that was a smaller. And then when you became a woman, it became even numbers. So I remember, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, Walmart and other, big brand names, they now became 13, 15, 17, 19. They stayed with an odd number teen sizes, even though they were technically adult women, larger clothing.
Well, me and Chastity, we've talked about this too. Guys suffer from body image. We act like we don't, and we may have a lot of bravado about it and go, but whatever. I know a bunch of dudes, and you can all just go away. You're full of crap. Here's why. Because we all hear the guy with the little man syndrome, right? And he's trying to, I'm not little.
Yeah, right.
Well, the flip side of it is.
That's the Napoleon.
Is
Napoleon.
it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
right. The little guy who said, I want to be big.
Well, and the other side of that is, in the world that you're in, and I know a lot of buddies, there are people who are very healthy in bodybuilding, but there are also people who have the same exact issue with body image, and they just take it the other direction. I'm not going to try to get too skinny, but I'm going to get so big that in my brain, because I've said this to you, but I was in good shape about 5-10 years ago. And I remember walking by the mirror going, golly, I'm a fat. I just need to lose some weight.
But see that right there, we know that's unhealthy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, those dang mirrors,
I like it. No mirrors.
Yeah.
But we do. But you know, when it comes to how we communicate, everybody else is our mirror.
Okay, so
Very true.
The issue's been kind of pinpointed and is out there. So let me ask some questions specifically that, and again, the great thing about this is nobody has to answer them. I can just throw it out there. Body image when it comes to the workplace or interactions with men. I'm going to throw the question out there and you two guys can go at it. But is that, from my perspective, I look at it and go, yeah, that's probably a problem. And I do this mentally. I don't have to deal with it, right? I don't have to worry about body image when you're talking about the workplace or dealing with other men. You have, and you have. You both have had to be women in workplaces and body image. How do you navigate that? What are some tips? Because I would like to get some tips and advice, or at least stories that lead to how you work through some of this from both of your perspectives before this thing's over. So in the workplace with men, especially body image, what should you do to improve your body image? What should you do to protect your body image? And what are some mind tricks or some new things that people can do to help?
I mean, I'll jump in real quick. And I think women to women need to be kinder. We're super judgy with other women, very harsh. Men need to talk about women about any quality that's not physical based, you know, whatever that might be. Tell us all our other great qualities, because at the end of the day, we're all going to be old and won't be in the best shape ever. So if men could really focus on that, and women could be kinder and gentler and help each other, because it's competitive from a biological sense, that would be very beneficial to us. And I know you have more you want to add on that, Chaz.
Well, from the workplace, I just say for me, I just decided not to work in a workplace. I work in my house.
There you go.
Like being every single job I've had in a workplace or even in a gym, it created a lot of issues for me because there was certain clothes you had to wear. I was uncomfortable in dress clothes. I was uncomfortable in heels. So like I just entered the workplace like this, like constantly like moving and I was uncomfortable. So I presented in a way that I wasn't comfortable because of what I had to wear. And when I'm in a workplace where I can wear workout clothes or I can wear tennis shoes and I walk in, it's like I present as like, I'm a beast. I'm a badass. I can do whatever. Like I'm going to walk up in here. I can rule this place. So I did much better in like the gym settings or the setting of like massage therapy where I wore something that I was comfortable in.
Yeah, and it shows really quick when you're not comfortable, because we do talk about it, which tells an observer they're not comfortable. And if you're not comfortable, forget your own skin, the stuff you put on your body, you're conveying like, oh gosh, you don't have to say anything. You're just like watching. And I'm always thinking, should have thought about that. It's like when a woman will wear a skirt out because she wants to, and then she sits down and that skirt rides up and she's tugging it. I'm thinking, you kind of should have thought about that before you headed out, you know, that it was going to, you know, or the tight clothing here or bra strap falling, or, you know, a man who wears the suit and tie and then it's choking at the end of the day.
I wore a tie for 10 years when I did sell, probably longer than that when you did radio sales. And I have, even in shape or no shape or round, whatever shape you want to give me, I literally, my daughter makes fun of me. She'll look over and go, your neck's that long, Dad. I have no neck. I sit like this. I have no neck. So when you give me a dress collar like this with the tie, I look like an English priest. So I would have to unbutton the top button and let it fall over.
You got wings here.
Yeah, I got wings. And now I look like the Norm from Cheers coming in after work, you know, because I hated being in a tie and a shirt. And a lot of it was being uncomfortable, but a lot of it too was I felt like I looked sloppy. I felt like I didn't look professional. I wasn't built for it. And I compensated for it by, you know, being funny or, you know, undoing the tie. I became the character.
Right.
I became that guy because I couldn't be this guy.
Head on a shirt guy.
Literally, my daughter called me. She said, you're built like a minion. You know, you just straight down. And so we all kind of can laugh about it, but the body image stuff is real. I want to take it back a little bit to the woman's side and let's talk when you're 15 and 16 and the food starts getting a hold of you. I don't know if people can understand unless they've been there. Were you looking in your mirror all the time? And when you looked in the mirror, did you see did you see something ugly? Did you see fat? How did that affect you? And what did you see when you looked in that mirror?
Yeah, mine started around 12 because I was a gymnast and my coach would constantly tell me I was too big for gymnastics.
Scripting. Mm-hmm.
And then my mom was a really small person. She struggled with eating disorders, and my dad was always super conscious of his weight. And I don't know if I just noticed that at a young age, but by the time I was 16, I just had that in my head that I was big and that I needed to be smaller. So no matter what I put on, I always felt like I was too big for it.
Yep.
So looking in the mirror, it was a constant, just everything just didn't fit right. And I felt clothes never fit. It didn't matter what I wore.
Years of it. So, and our intention is not to harm, but the scripting and saying it again and again and years of it, of course it's going to impact us. And then when you go into the workplace and somebody makes a comment, it takes you right back to when you were 11. You're like, oh,
yep.
And so you wear that on the outside, like, oh gosh, and why do I want to be here? And how do I communicate now? And this, I'm miserable. Forget walking with pride of like, darn right, And so fortunately, we do see some movements of bigger people, if you will. If we want to talk about size, about them dressing for their body and how you see yourself with your posture.
Well, yeah. And I've got a question. I'm going to write it down or I'll forget it. Okay. So I don't want to ask it now because I think it'll interrupt where we're at with her, but I want to ask it in a minute. So as you got older though, because I love this, you're telling your story and she's jumping in. That's perfect. As you're starting to get older and you start becoming, more independent from mom and dad, and now you're out in the real world. Did you have tricks? Did you have things that you put in place to deal with this, to hide it from people? Because I kind of know why you talk about being authentic. Everybody has secrets.
Yeah.
So what did you do to hide that? And how did you learn to handle it?
I wore a lot of big clothes when I got bigger, especially once I got into college. I gained a lot of weight, but hiding the pain just went into eating disorders. I just sedated with food. And I felt bigger. So I always thought that people were noticing what I ate. So I just didn't want to be the one that didn't eat because I was bigger. So I would eat more. So I'd be like, oh, well, I'm fine. And then I would go throw it up either I didn't even care. It was at a local place or at home or whatever. I just would get rid of it, but I would always do things to like hide and wear bigger clothes, or I just wouldn't go outside. In college, for a month, I didn't go out of my room. I just felt so bad and was so depressed about my body weight and about life and things. I didn't leave the house. Didn't do really well in school during that month, but
something about that, paying that tuition and going to class, but it makes sense though. I mean, you couldn't really think, if we don't feel good about ourselves, and then not deal with that, then it manifests itself like that.
I would think too, just because not knowing the official terms and not living in your skin or from a female perspective, just being old and having experience, we tend to take these insecurities that we have and somehow it comes out to other people. It comes out on other people. Either it's the displaced aggression or it's eating. And now I'm bigger than I want to be. So there's so much insecurity when I start dealing with someone that I'm interested in romantically or a relationship. There's tons of communication we do of closed, I'm assuming.
Oh, totally.
So how did you navigate that world? And how have you seen people navigating that world? The do's and don'ts of dealing with this kind of stuff.
I mean, obviously it comes out verbally, when you fight and so forth, we all begin to act like children, use our child voice, but even how couples interact, and there's a whole chapter in the book on romantic relationship and that body language and communication. And you see couples that are in sync, from walking together to their bodies, almost like a dance.
Yeah, we don't like those people, though. I don't like those people at all.
You can have one day. Like, where's mine?
Yeah, they keep reaching down for each other saying, get your hand off of me. What are you doing, you needy
You're
person?
touching me. You're touching me.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. But, when there's discord, it shows up pretty quick, from physical withdrawals to aggressive behaviors, to self-manipulation or self-soothing, nail biting, drinking, eating, self-protection. We communicate. You can watch a whole thing unplay without saying a word.
Did you have trouble? And again, feel free to any of these questions go. I can't hear you. What'd you say? But did you have trouble getting close with people because of the eating disorder? Look at the smile. I'm assuming that's
I still do. I've been single my whole life.
Do you really? Okay.
Yeah, it's one of, like, right now I'm reading a lot of vulnerability books because I realized actually at this most recent event that I went to, I worked so hard to be okay with my own body, but in the process of being okay with my own body, I turned my body into armor. So I don't ever let anybody in.
Right.
So I constantly help people, even in my profession. Like I went from, nutrition and health and all that, and even went into massage therapy because I needed touch, but I wouldn't allow people to touch me. Even as a child, I wouldn't allow my parents to hug me. I didn't let people touch me. And it's funny because even now in interpersonal relationships, even with my boyfriend currently, it's a problem. Like I am working on becoming open and connecting with someone in a non-controlled way, because I have to control every single connection, touch, even conversation, because my entire life's been controlled.
Yep. And that's textbook.
Wow.
It's very textbook that kids that have been traumatized, whatever that might be, touch is actually burning. We know when there's healthy. And I remember when I was a teacher, I could go around and greet each kid going, how you doing? How you doing today? And you feel those pull away and you're like, oh, indicator, because touch, when it's not in a healthy way, hurts, burns, stings, and you want to withdraw. And when you seek control, we seek control as adults, the more control we seek, it's typically because we didn't have it early on. So by God, we're going to have it now, kind of thing.
Is this possible? What I'm about to ask you. Here we go. Is this possible? Is it possible to think of yourself so ugly or unattractive that in your brain you go, I wouldn't touch that? And so when someone touches you, you think,
why would they do that?
Why are you doing something I wouldn't do? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's what she's talking about. It's like that self-love that you don't have, you portray onto somebody else. Like, how could you love this kind of thing? And seriously, they talk about, you better take care of yourself first at the end of the day before you care for anybody else, or in it while you're caring for other people. It's a journey, like we talked about.
And none of this is coming from personal experience. It's all just notes I've made.
Right.
None of this is for me at all.
Right.
There is some questions I need to ask
you. I should be taking notes for you.
There's some questions I have for you when we get off the air. Right. There's 137 of them.
My friend.
Absolutely. Asking for a friend. So if you're, kind of old, fat, and hairy, what do you do? I mean, just asking for somebody else.
Old is relative, fat is relative, hairy, shave.
Absolutely.
Okay, there you go.
You know what? I think this podcast, I think we've done enough now. That's good. No, okay. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and I said I was going to pin. So I'd be interested in getting both your takes on this. I see a little bit in the world we live in now, and I don't know how to put this without being kind of a hammer in search of a nail, but we're celebrating. I think there's a difference between celebrating body types. There's a difference between celebrating being comfortable. But sometimes I think we go overboard. And I've seen things in online magazines actually celebrate unhealthy. They celebrate when someone is 150 pounds overweight, or they'll celebrate men and women. We kind of do it with dudes in a humorous way.
Right. Big guy.
The big guy, the dad bod. I've said it 1,000 times. But with women, I've actually seen it to where they say, be comfortable in your own skin. And then I look and I go, I'm glad that they're comfortable, but I'm not sure that's physically healthy.
Right. Your heart. Yeah. Lungs. And
the example.
Momentum.
And the example. People are watching us, especially kids. So I'm assuming you've seen some of those same things I'm talking about. Does that bother you being in the profession you're in?
No, I tend to go toward, if you're not okay where you are, then you probably are not going to go anywhere. Like, you have to be uncomfortable where you are. But what I find is the people that don't look in the mirror, they're the ones that stay where they are. So those women that are like, hey, well, I'm loving this, but like, hey, I'm changing my food. I might lose weight on the way. But like, they're okay right now. Usually they move forward faster, because realistically, between now and probably 2 to 3 weeks from now, you're still going to look like that person. Yeah. So why have so much shame and guilt about that person? But to celebrate, this is where I am and I'm staying here. I don't agree with that.
That's what I think there's a difference between, hey, listen, I'm comfortable where I'm at, and it's a journey. And I'm comfortable where I'm at. You should all just get used to it, because this is the way I'm going to be forever. And I'm not saying there's not exceptions. I actually heard a podcast about this a couple of weeks ago. This came up and it reminded me of this podcast we're doing, and I thought it'd be good. What do you think about stuff like that?
A couple different issues here. I think that you have the self-esteem, the self-image, the external view of like, do I like who I am? And then you have the health aspect. What do your numbers say? What does a cardiologist say? What is the fat distribution that strangles our internal organs? Are we getting nutritional psychology? Are we feeding our brains the right food so we can think straight? We're all in a way malnourished by today's diet world. Most people don't eat the brain foods that we need or are missing the nutrients. I mean, most of our country's vitamin D deficient, and there's the sun, but we're not in it, kind of. Well, some of us aren't in it.
That's why you moved to Florida. One of the reasons you moved to Florida, right?
But all of those things take its toll in time. It's not going to be overnight. We don't get Alzheimer's overnight, but what leads up to it from sleep and diet and choices and so there's that part of it that gets us to our health journey and emotional health, physical health. So let's not confuse the two. We want somebody who is struggling with physical health to still feel good, but still do something.
And there's a fine line between, trying to figure out how to put it. There's a fine line, I think, between being so driven that we don't live in the moment. Like you said, celebrate where you're at on the journey.
Go out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't stay in your dorm room for a month.
But it's also healthy to have a little bit of conflict internally, right? I think it's healthy to go, I need to be better at something. I need to be better at this. You were on a podcast with me a couple of weeks ago. We talked about the empty nest syndrome.
Right.
And I've spent last year, I've shared this with Chastity. She's helping me on some stuff. I spent last year, 3 years after, some life changes, I think I had my year when, most people have it right afterwards. I think mine caught up with me and I became very comfortable, very shelled. And I think there's that fine line between, I don't want any conflict. I don't want any steel, iron versus iron. I don't want any of that. I just need to sit and being overboard with it, where everything in our brain is, I'm not good enough. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I'm not smart. All those. But sometimes we need stuff in our brain, don't we? I think
it's I think you're talking about cortisol in a sense that we have to have that steroid. It keeps us alive, keeps us alert, and there's a performance that goes with it too. There's a great stress curve called Yerkes-Dodson, and it's the relationship between performance and stress. And you can tip it and become dysfunctional, like you're going to this incredible event with CrossFit, and then you're like, can't do it, too much, and you almost shut down, burnout, anxiety. You've tipped the curve, the Yerkes-Dodson curve. So there's this balance between having enough motivation. Yeah, I'm going to do something about it. I get that project done. I'm going to lose, or I'm going to get in shape, kind of thing. And you perform, but too much or not enough is not necessarily a good place to be.
You're on videos all the time. I see you, Chastity, on videos. I don't know, 10 a week, 50 a week, 1,000 a week. I don't know how many you do. And I don't know how you sleep. One of the things I thought was interesting to ask, and you are too. So some tips, some things that when you're on a video, and I violate all of them, by the way. So when she gives tips or if you give some suggestions and y'all go back and forth on this, if you look to me, I violate every rule almost. What do you do on podcast or videos? What are some tips that people can do to be better at it?
What do you think, Chaz?
I just say be yourself and do it often, because the worst part is looking at yourself. Like when you start, you just don't remember what you're saying. If you look at yourself and you stop, because you're like noticing like, oh, this eyelash is out and this hair looks weird. And like you start like analyzing yourself instead of like focusing on the fact that you're talking to somebody. Because when you're talking to somebody, you're looking at them and focusing on their reaction. In podcasting or making videos, I have to physically think about the person that I'm talking to versus analyzing myself while I'm doing the video.
Right.
So that's a big help, and then also have a plan, because otherwise you're just going to talk forever, which I do sometimes.
No, I think that's great. I think, and that is a challenge, is that we're an eye contact culture. We want to look at each other in the eye versus I hear you and I'm on my phone. I hear you and I keep talking, because we know that's not possible. And what that communicates is you're really not into me. So when you're in a visual sense like this, we're happy about that. We want to see each other, and that's why people tune into this, so we can see each other. But what about that eye contact? And and you can tell, leaning into the camera. And, when you're leaning in, I'm like looking at her. Am I going, oh, there's me too, kind of thing? Absolutely not, kind of thing. And being present, and the tone of voice. Does it change? Does it get excited? Does it get talk faster and a higher pitch when you're really into something? Or, that authentic engagement, I think, is a big deal.
I had someone on the radio a couple weeks ago, the Marketing Mix Radio, and I was asking them a question, and it was going really good. And they were sitting here, I'm sitting there, my co-host sitting over here, and they were doing a great job on what their company does, what the company's about. Everything's going great. And I asked them what they do in the off time, and they started talking, and I can't remember if it was either four-wheeling or racing motorcycles or something. I can't remember, but they did this, and they started talking so fast that I was like, I guess talking to her enough, I was like, oh,
they're into this.
Wow. Well, let me ask you a follow-up question about that, sir. Shall we go down another road? Because that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun.
And you saw it. You saw them come to life and be engaged because you triggered like something meaningful.
Is it hard for you? Do you do a lot of TV interviews where it's just the camera?
Me?
Chat?
No.
Yeah. You've done a lot of those.
I do. So I can see where the monitors are.
Do you is it hard for you to talk to the camera versus talk to somebody like this, or is it easier?
It depends on the setup. I mean, because all setups are different. Sometimes there's a monitor behind you. Sometimes there's one here. What is the host looking at? Is there one sitting right there that looks like me? Is there a green screen behind me? So it really depends on it. But, fortunately, when you go on, you get it 30 seconds to kind of position so that everything kind of looks where it should. And, how are my legs? Because they take in the whole person. Just like we had 5 minutes before we went live on this to say, like, are our heads cut off on this? What do we see here?
Is Jerry in the picture?
Is the guy sitting over there in the picture? No, it's funny that I did a magazine article spread, and we did still life posing and so forth. And we got into handshakes and just how imperative handshakes are. And so I was trying to talk about palming and equal pressure, and Jerry became a hand model for it. And that's not the funny part. Is when the magazine came out, it said hand, and it had his name. So he got credit for his hand, and I'm like, that's pretty funny. So
you start taking care of the hand now, honey. I got to ice this hand.
You could be out in the store, someone you're like, I know that hand, right? I've seen that hand in a magazine.
I've shaken your hand. You got a great handshake, and I tell my daughter to have a good handshake.
Handshakes are important.
Huge.
Actually, we learned. I went to GPS, girls' prep school in Chattanooga. We actually, in school, I remember them teaching us how to shake hands.
Yeah, and you're fortunate. That's a rarity, and it was just supposed to magically happen, and then this thing comes along, or this kind of thing.
This is the one that gets me. That one. This right here.
Yeah, you're like,
oh, I hate that.
Are you grabbing a bag to carry from the car? What is that?
No, it's like
here we have this point like, hello, I'm hugging you, and you're like,
that's the Joe Biden handshake. No, I'm just
like,
kidding.
Let go of me, right, kind of thing. Yeah, huge deal. But it's touch. It's the first time that we touch somebody voluntarily, and boy, does it tell a lot. And pressure and who's going to be in charge. And
I told her this. I did a handshake. I went back in sales. This is 15 years ago. I go to this seminar, and there's a guy up there kind of doing what she does, but not near as good. And we were kind of making some fun of him. He asked me to come up front and do a handshake. He was going to go through all the different handshakes. And he bring one person up, sit him down, explain it. I went up and I go, and I slightly turn it up.
You palmed him.
Yeah, I went, nice to meet you. And he grabbed my hand. He goes, come here. And I go, someone needs to be in charge. And I go, what? He goes, because you're
right.
Turn it.
Right. You expose this part of it, which like I was like,
I had no idea. I just know I felt, I was like,
you're somebody that will have a podcast show one day.
Yeah.
Come on over here. Let me talk to you for a minute. That's the way that works. Yeah. Okay. So the couple of things that I wanted to go over, and then we'll start moving forward. Dating, we've talked about a little bit. So this may be where the meat of what I wanted to get to is. So we have talked a little bit about body image. We talked about the struggle. And I know we went through your journey a little bit, Chastity, but what are some things when you started getting healthy? Is there a process when you talk to other people? And I hate using the word tricks. Maybe it's the word habit. Are there things that you do now that are healthy that help you keep the script to yourself in check?
Yes.
Awesome.
To be honest, yes.
Tell us what those are. Right?
Thank you.
That was exactly. And she was like, okay, you can stop talking now because I know what you're going to say.
There are a lot of things that I do to keep my brain healthy. The first thing I did was start taking Juice Plus, which is the fruits and vegetables in capsule. That's because I had an autoimmune disease and my body wasn't absorbing nutrients. So legitimately my brain was not working properly. So it didn't really matter. Like I was raised in kind of an abusive environment, and then also my body wasn't absorbing nutrients. So a couple things I do is, one, I intake tons of nutrients all the time. Lots and lots of fruits and vegetables, capsules, shakes, and then regular produce. The other thing I do is I typically wear comfortable clothes. The only time I'm in uncomfortable clothes is typically when I'm going out and doing like a date or a gala or some kind of event like that. And even like going to church, I'll wear like kind of like stretchy clothes so that I don't feel like something's restricting me and bound. Like anything, like even jeans, I have to wear stretchy jeans, because if I wear clothes that are tight on me, then it makes me uncomfortable. And so why do that? Right. And people probably think that you should wear different clothes, but to me, it just makes more sense to be comfortable, and then I present better. Another thing I do is I fill my brain with lots of goodness. So like listening to really good books about stuff that like she would write. I would listen to Donna's book, if she was on Audible, and
it's available on Kindle. There you go.
Available on Kindle.
I believe it is.
Yeah. So people like her, like things that are like good and going to feed my soul and feed all of those voices in my head with all the stories I used to have as a kid and the stuff that still plays. I try to reset them. So especially if it's like a bad talking in my head day, I'll put a bunch of podcasts in my head or books in my head all day long that are very, very good to feed the good wolf, not the bad wolf.
And that's just talking about our senses, of things to do to help through the senses. Absolutely.
One of the things I like what you said, and I think I'm going to start using the word we all struggle with this different on the spectrum, but I love it when you're having a bad day. Sometimes we get stuck in a day and we don't have the perspective to know this is a day.
It will end today.
It's right. And
you get to go to sleep.
And I've been on the other side of it where a day becomes two and then it becomes a habit. And I think that's why, like you said, feeding the good wolf is important. So you have the energy the next day to go, I'm not having two.
Right.
Two's not acceptable. I'll have one. Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. I like get in the pity boat, row around, and then bring it ashore and climb out kind of thing. But I think it's the doing. What will you do? Because we need to keep moving to stay alive. Sedentary is not great. Things break down when they're sedentary. But feeding your brain and the micronutrients. I mean, like you're intentional with it. I counted them one day. I take 15. I take one iron prescription, probably TMI here, but then I take 15 optional nutrients, and I feel great doing it. I mean, because I know what our brain needs.
And I also think doing these things, and I'm not saying they're placebo effects. I think they're completely legitimate. I take stuff too. I think doing things like that builds it's the foundational stuff of keeping commitments to yourself, putting yourself in a place where that's a win for the day. It's not huge and it's not all day, but I started my day off with a win.
Right.
And then my brain goes, well, if you wanted that, don't go sabotaging it with some other stuff. It's almost creating your own momentum.
And when she's talking about the clothing, she's not even being haphazard about clothing, whether it's a suit you wear to work or you wear slacks and a blouse or it's jeans day, she's intentional to make sure it still looks good on her. She feels good in it, though she's not totally focused and obsessed with, oh God, it's a little bit too tight right here. I'm going to be miserable all day. And all of us feel that, if you have to dress up for something. And I was starting to laugh when you said, I'm going on a date, so I'm going to wear something uncomfortable. Well, let's see how that date goes. Like, how you doing? Not too good, dude. Kind of thing. Like, that's a recipe for disaster.
If you go look at my videos, I wear this in 90% of them because I'm comfortable in it.
Well, I hope you have a variety. But are you?
I wash it every day.
There
Thank
you go.
you very much.
So you smell good. Yeah.
Or you do what most guys do, which we should not do. Axe body spray.
Oh.
This podcast is brought to you by the most disgusting smell of women that women could ever have of you ever.
Well, we're sensitive to smells too, as far as how we communicate. Smells that we like for those candles. If it's a baked good candle, I am buying it.
I'm a Christmas guy.
Right.
I love Christmas.
Right. You want to smell like, I want to smell trees.
Yeah.
Those trees and so forth. But it works the other way too. So I always joke when I'm in a seminar and I move on to olfactories or smells and I'll go around and I'll sniff and I'm looking for, I'll sniff.
Can you imagine that at the seminar?
Yes.
Come here.
And I'll be like, hello, 1984, the green bottle. And it's,
Wow.
You know what I'm talking about? Or smells like that. Or you smell something like, my grandpa wore that,
Yep.
or that was my grandma's house.
Well, the worst thing that we can do is not ask. There's a couple of them. I think it's a 3 a.m. There's a cologne out there that I like. It's a newer cologne, but wearing things that reminds me of old times. Jovan Musk, don't. I do it, but don't. I'm just telling you, giving people advice because we do things that we like.
My dad.
Thank you very much.
My dad wore that.
Yep. Thank you
My
very
mom
much.
said he smells great. I'm like, yeah, that's my dad.
It's my dad. So you wear it on a date, and they're like, I'm not hugging you at all.
But if you're wearing
smell like my
polo,
dad.
the green bottle, I am so in college at a fraternity party where they all wore it.
Everybody wore it.
Everybody wore it.
The thing I love about this is a lot of the stuff that Chassie's talked about and you talk about, even though it seems superficial to folks, the body language part, right?
Yeah.
This is all outward. What I'm doing with my hands, how I stand, how I dress, all that's outward. And so we look at something that I can control, which we can. But it also comes from the deep place of what she's been through, what you've experienced, and what I've experienced. So I think having the conversation of being aware of what you do actually can lead to the discovery of stuff about ourselves.
Well, yeah, because the rule of thumb is inward feelings, outward behaviors. That's the truth of it. Of how you feel inside, good, bad, or indifferent, will show up externally. You can say I'm fine all day long, but your little micro expressions and a little chewing here, the little fiddling here, you can't control all of it. Something will leak, it's called.
And I would think people would be amazed that you've had body issues with what you do and how you I would think 90% of the people, and especially women, will look and go, I would love to be in that kind of shape. And yet they hear you struggling. I think it's really not maybe good for you, but good for other people to know that's a commonality.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you talk about the leaks because I was always good at hiding things, but even body language and how I conducted myself, my nails are always bitten. You can't see the inside of my mouth, but I bite the inside of my mouth all the time. I'll go to the dentist and he's like, your teeth are amazing. What the crap are you doing to the inside of your lips?
Yeah.
And it's just a constant. And I sit I constantly move in a chair and then I never usually sit back in chairs because it makes me feel bigger. So I constantly sit on the edge. Just little things that I've noticed all the time. Yeah. I've just from being overweight and being uncomfortable, I naturally tend to do certain things and hide certain things. And
isn't it
the way
weird?
I move.
Isn't it weird that we get locked into an image and I don't know when that snapshot is taken. I don't know when the picture is taken, but in my brain, that's the image. And like I said, when I look back on pictures and I go, I was in great shape, but it's almost like it doesn't matter if I'm a teenager, my 20s, 40s, or now I'm in my 50s. When I see myself in my brain, I wish I could go back to when that picture was taken.
You're a kid. You're a kid.
Yeah.
But it all kind of starts as a kid.
I don't know. It's weird that we carry that around.
Yeah.
It's almost like we pull it out of our wallets every now and then just to look at it and go, oh, that's why you feel like crap about yourself today. Thank you. And then put it back in our wallets and move on.
And we're harsh. We're harsh on ourselves. As a fallible human, we are really hard on ourselves and we shouldn't be. I mean, that's easy to say. That's really hard to practice and so forth. Sometimes age helps, time helps and so forth, and support resources. We are a social animal. So going it alone does not solve the problem. Talk to somebody, surround yourself with the tribe that pulls you through.
That made me think of your coaching groups. It's kind of, you have some coaching groups. It's a great time, I think, to kind of let people know what you do and that coaching group concept, because I know you have them and it's that tribe kind of, we're not alone in this.
Yeah. One of the reasons I started, I'm a nutrition coach and I one-on-one coach people. But what I realized is inside of that, most people don't have any support. So they're trying to change in their own environment while talking to me. So basically, I'm like their nutritional therapist and I'm helping them change their habits. And everybody else in their normal life is looking them like, why are you doing this weird stuff? Stop eating vegetables. Who cares if you wake up early to work out? Why don't you sleep in? They want them to stay the same. And I'm pushing them to change to what they want to change toward, but they don't have any support because everybody wants them to stay where they are so that they don't have to change. So inside the coaching groups, now you have a group of people that are not only learning together, but they're changing together, and they want to push each other to reach whatever goal they set. And the whole goal is to have like a tribe of humans that everybody is constantly becoming the best version of themselves. And even if that person is not in your everyday life, the cool thing about them not being in your everyday life is you most likely will open up to them a lot more and tell them all your inner demons, because you're not going to run into Sally at the grocery store. You're going to see her online inside the group and tell her you're like food demons or you're fighting with your husband, and that's why you dove into some chocolate and whatever it is. But Sally's not going to go tell your husband or anybody, and you can keep changing while you have a support of a tribe of people that are changing with you.
Yep.
And when you get asked to come speak, I know it's on different topics. Are there some core things that you tell people to be aware of? And I know me and you, I've asked you this before, and I say the words like in a business setting or in a dating setting, but just overall, no matter where you're at, are there some things right now people could go, I need to start being aware of these habits?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's how you feel, how it just shows up on the outside, from smiling with teeth, downward eyes, eye contact, how physically close you're willing to get to somebody. And we have coronavirus right now. And so this whole physical thing is a big deal, so to be educated that touching you, I'm not going to get it, but it wants our lungs. So doing this is a no-no kind of thing, or, the handshaking right now. So we're in a health crisis for that right now, but under normal circumstances, to be aware of how close we get to somebody, or that touch that we talk about, and how much we want to engage with them, let alone the words, but, do we lean into them? I know people are sensitive when they hear like, how you doing today? I'm good. And you're like, wow, I heard a whole bunch of stuff right there. Just that whole oxygen and what you're doing with it in your lungs, your head and so forth. Is it, what's it telling us?
I'm going to ask you a question about your book in just a minute. But first, I've tried to sprinkle in words of wisdom from Clint to men during this podcast. So here's another one. Hey, guys, if you are talking to girls, and when I mean women in the workplace, whether it's personal, work, or whatever, and I would be very aware of their body language, because a lot of times they will set expectations when you do reach out to touch them. They'll pull back. They'll do this. They'll look. If you want some videos on what this looks like, go look at the Joe Biden on the,
the one.
There's a couple where he's a little.
Like, stop.
Me and you talked about that last time.
We did talk about it.
It's just, I think
not
he's
a
got
good move, Joe.
No, I think he's got a pure heart, but dude.
Yeah, not everybody needs a dad.
Not everybody needs your granddad.
Yeah.
I'm sure you smell like Brute or something too, and you're just chancing okay. But,
he's old spicing it all the way.
That's right. Read the room, and if they pull back when you reach out to touch them, stop touching them.
Yes. Especially smaller people, male and female. When it's a bigger human, you have to be aware of that relationship. Kind of.
I got a buddy of mine that's got giant. He's a huge human anyway. I mean, he's just a giant mountain dude, but he's got these hands that are like this. I mean, his hands are huge, and every time he sees me, he grabs me and he hugs me. What's up, man? And then he puts his hand on my shoulder. How's the kids? His hand goes from here to here, and literally, I just kind of want to just put my hand on his chest and go, just don't hurt me. We're good. I get it. You're the guy that kills the bear. I'm the guy that eats the meat. Okay. The book.
Yes.
Okay, so you got a book coming out specifically for women. The genesis of the book, like why, what people can look for it. So when people like me or Chastity want to read it, what are they going to get out of it?
How to convey confidence, how to build trust with other people. Where do you see yourself? Where do you fall into this of what happened to derail you, and how do you get back on that? What are your female to female relationships, and how did they start? I look at race. We look at age, fascinating data on how we feel about our bodies just based on race, how it's different, and how white women we have our own perceptions of thin is best, small is best. That's not universal, at all. But as a white woman, I'm like, really? It's not? Kind of thing.
The demons we struggle with.
Not everybody is right. Whereas if you're an Asian female, the expectations that go with that of being nice, politer, quieter, smarter, all those stereotypes and biases that we put on, everybody else kind of thing, and including age and look at it politically or look at it who you hang out with. all of that goes into who you work with. And then I talk about the romantic relationships and how all of that plays out, of how you fight, how you trust each other, or don't trust each other, and how to be more aware, and be intentional with what you do. Chaz is intentional with it, and that's what makes a big difference.
Well, and the one thing I know from talking with you, Chastity, is you use a lot of your own stories to help identify and make other people relate to you. So with that being said, how much of this book is you? How much of this book did you pull from you?
It's hard not to pull it from me because, we all have a background. I'm the product, if you will, of a love child relationship of the 60s, with a single mom kind of thing. And then I have my own, I'm not quiet about it. I was molested as a child. And a lot of times I'm the voice for those that can't have a voice. But when I look about a room, I can count it out. I can almost see who that person is. They resonate with me of like, no, yes. And then when I say that, something changes in the look. Could be a slight lean in, a shift of the eye, a glaring like you too kind of thing. So it's all making these connections. And of course my own stories go into that, or my female relationships, or how I have felt in the workplace. So, I serve on some boards now, and as maybe the 1, 2, or 3 females, and how the men, will huddle together, and I come in, am I one of the guys, or like, hi, kind of thing. So it's an awareness on both sides and really helping each other. And I love helping women, and men, of course. I do executive coaching like you on one-on-one, or sometimes a group, depending. And the intent is to help. So in saying that, sometimes you have to have that hard conversation, or did you realize, kind of thing, but we're all in it together. I'm constantly learning just as you are, and Chastity as well.
That's awesome. I did not know some of that about you. That makes me feel good.
That's a whole story, isn't it?
Yeah, that's another podcast.
I've asked people too. It's interesting when they'll say, like, what's your background? I'll say, what do you think I am? And they're like, well, you're highly educated. You have this going on. I'm sure you came from middle class. I'm sure you this. And they rattle off all these things. And I said, well, let me tell you, in 1966, born of this and this, and this happened at age 6. And, we were homeless. We got dropped off at my aunt's house. And so it's absolutely nothing that you expect. So what happened along the way to end up on this side of it?
See, to me, though, and I don't know how you do, because I've watched a lot of your podcasts and videos, isn't that the fun part of doing the technology we have nowadays? We get to hear so many other stories that are cool now.
Yeah.
It makes our world much smaller. I mean, basking in the sun, she's right here with us.
She can't wait to get done. She's got a phone call waiting on her, or she's heading to the outside. I know what she's doing.
She's going to take her vitamins. Yeah, that's right.
That's vitamin D. So tell people how to find out more about you, and you tell people where to find your book, and then I'm going to do something for both of you before we wrap this thing up. And if I've missed something, y'all throw it out there. This is your time.
I have an Instagram, Chastity Snowden _FLA. And then I also have a Fearlessly Authentic Movement Instagram. And then my Facebook's Chast Snowden Coaching.
Awesome.
Other than that, the website's coming. FLAmovement.com will be done by the end of the month.
Oh, that's very good. I know you've been working on that for a while. That's super cool.
A lot of work.
How do you find your books, and when's the other one available?
Find the books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can go to my website, bodylanguagedoctor.com, and then read about me. You can read about the books. You can order them there. It's going to drive you to Amazon or Barnes & Noble anyway. It's in pre-order right now, the book coming out in June. So you can only get Image Scrimmage or Body Language of Politics. And when I do live events, I like to, if you pre-order one book, if I have Image Scrimmage with me, I will give you a copy of that. And so to promote it, because it also talks about women in the workplace. And I, of course, have Instagram, Donna Van Natten, Facebook, Body Language Doctor, or Dr. Donna Van Natten. Just do a little Google and things pop up. And I'm actually doing a live event at Saudi Daisy Library coming up. So check that out. Yeah, check that out. It's going to be promoted.
What's the name of the new book? I know we said that.
Body Language for Women.
Body Language for
Women. It's
Women.
yellow with bright red writing and some really awesome women on the front of it.
Okay, so I'm going to say this, and I've said it to both of you privately, and I think I've actually said it on podcasts. You're on a ton of podcasts. I know you're working on this. You should have your own podcast.
That's the goal in the first of the year.
I know you do. And you should have your own podcast.
I think you said that too.
I do, because here's the one thing I can do. I can get people on to talk about their stuff, but you guys actually have stuff that you can talk about all the time.
Yeah.
If I don't have anybody in the room, I basically am just sitting here like, hello. you guys have stories, and so I'm encouraging you both to do it. And if you get them up and running, I would love to get you back on and talk about those.
That'd be great.
That would
Love that.
Thanks.
I think we did everything. Are you good with it? Thumbs up.
Yes. Very good.
Thumbs up. Thank you, Chastity.
Thanks.
Thank you. So
All right,
nice
we'll
to
talk
meet
to you
you.
soon.
Pleasure to meet you.
And down the road, when you start doing your podcast, this may be a good one when I'm not in the way.
We're split screening, you and
Yeah.
me.
That would be
That's
fun.
right.
You too.
And guess who we're going to talk about?
That's fine.
All day long.
There's a long list
We
of
have
people.
some stories.
Yes.
Yeah. Our guests are going to talk about you.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck. Let me know how that works out. Thank you, Chastity.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody. Feel free to share this. Check out my personal podcast at duringthebreakpodcast.com. We'll talk to everybody later. Bye.